Without further ado, I would like to introduce Kevin Lynch. And Kevin is with the Connecticut Alliance of Retired Americans. Connecticut Alliance of Retired Americans. Kevin Lynch, thank you.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've been given 5 minutes. In that time, I'm supposed to address the Afghanistan war and several other issues, and then sit down and get the real star on. I'm what is called a warm-up act. Nevertheless, because I represent the Connecticut Alliance for Retired Americans, and because we have 60,000 members in the state, and because we represent retired Americans, I was asked to say something about Social Security and Medicare before the real star gets on. So I'll say something about Social Security. There's so much misinformation about Social Security. Its Republican opponents, or Republicans in Congress, are saying it's bankrupt. Its supporters in senior groups are saying it's not bankrupt. It's got $2.6 trillion in reserves. What are they talking about bankrupt? Let me take you back to 1999, State of the Union address. Not George Bush. 1999. This is Bill Clinton. And what does he say? There's a problem in Social Security. You can address it now, and it'll cost you something. Or you can let it go, and it'll cost you a heck of a lot more. We have let it go. What about this $2.6 trillion, which people say we have in Social Security? No. What we have are bonds, government bonds. And those bonds are collecting interest. That's why the Republicans are talking about a crisis, because the bonds have to be paid. The government has been borrowing these bonds. Now, not just the money of the bonds, but the interest which has accrued on the bonds is coming due. In 2000, there were 20 Social Security beneficiaries collecting for every 100 workers. In 2020, or 2030, I forget which, it's going to be 27. It's going to have almost increased by 50%. There is a problem in Social Security, but there's not a crisis. There's a problem. Now, for you readers of the New York Times, I'm not going to tell you anything that you haven't already read. For those of you who don't read the New York Times regularly, I want to quote a strange source. I'm going to quote David Brooks, who, as most of you know, is the House conservative of the New York Times. And this is what he says in today's column. Over the past few days, I've spoken with a number of Republicans in Congress and elsewhere who don't want to do anything bad. They fervently believe the country is in peril. They want to find a way to reduce the debt without committing political suicide. Doing that is a two-step process. First, Republicans have to make the grand offer on raising the debt ceiling. This offer should include a bipartisan commitment to reduce the growth of Medicare spending. Republicans need Democrats' fingerprints on a plan to restrain entitlements. In exchange, Republicans, get ready, if you're a Republican and you haven't read this, you're going to fall out of your chairs. Republicans should offer to raise tax revenues on the rich. Every source that I have seen, let me explain, first of all. I was a college professor. I taught medieval, the poetry and the art of medieval Ireland and England. So, am I a statistician? Am I an accountant? Do I have credentials in this field? No, I'm just telling you what I've read. And what I've read from the Congressional Budget Office, from the Kaiser Family Foundation, really fairly legitimate and neutral groups, says that if we raise if we take away the Bush tax cuts for the rich, we solve Medicare. We solve the Medicare problem. Okay, so he's just solved it. In exchange, Republicans should offer to raise tax revenues on the rich. They should get rid of the interest deductions on mortgages over $500,000 and on second homes. I know I'm in serious trouble when I come to Newington and I tell you that you're going to lose your interest on your second home. Not only that, but you're going to lose the deduction on the rest of your home that's over $500,000. I know that, and knows the curves that I have. I'm still reading this too. They should close corporate loopholes and cap health insurance deductions. Okay, that's what David Brooks would say. I'm not saying it. He's saying. Do I have 2 more minutes? Because I didn't get it.
Sounds like you're on a roll.
What did I just tell you? I'm the warm-up act. He's the star. We all know that. But let me just say something about Medicare. I've been saying this in speeches, Enfield, West Hartford, Hartford, New Haven, since 2004. There's a problem with Social Security. There's a crisis in Medicare. Where did it come about? It came about because the Medicare Modernization Act of 2003 is the most insidious act ever passed. What did it do? It promised you a drug benefit. And you have to make certain assumptions, because there were 44 plans that you could buy to cover this Part D. You have to make assumptions if you're going to talk about Part D and what it does and what it doesn't do. So let's assume a middle-of-the-road plan with out-of-pocket deductions and with a donut hole, and let's assume that you're paying $12,000 a year for prescription drugs. If you do the math, and I don't have time for all of this, obviously, if you do the math, what you'll find out is even going into the donut hole and coming out, you'll be saving about $5,000 a year. Who pays that $5,000? You see, the Republicans did to Medicare's budget. They just gave out this new entitlement and didn't pay for it. That's largely why there's such a crisis in Medicare. And there is. I could go on, but you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from somebody that knows what he's talking about.